Trump's health agency urges the therapy for transgender youth, not broader gender-affirming healthcare. That's great. Conversion therapy. Let's go. 409-page Health and Human Services report. I'm not reading that shit. That report is crazy. It's like 90% posts from Twitter. Well, this is a summary. This is 9 pages. The Gender Dysphoria Report. What about the 409-page report? Is this just, why is it 9 pages and not 409 pages? Full report. I'm stupid. I can't read. Yep, that looks like 409 pages. You don't need to read it. Check out Aaron Reed's thread in it. I respect the hell out of Aaron Reed, but reading Aaron Reed's thread on it would imply that I think there's anything in here to dissect. I've spent literally my entire career talking about this. Transphobes have stopped even making arguments. The position transphobes have had about trans people is and always has been that they're sick degenerates and abominations to God. That is and always has been their position. And I've always said that. And in the meantime, I have humored the topic by entertaining the pseudoscientific, bullshit arguments that they pretend to believe in. And they've stopped inventing new arguments. They haven't come up with any new ones, folks. You can prove their arguments wrong. It doesn't matter. The real argument, is that they hate you and they're disgusted by you. And that's not something you're going to be able to convince people out of. At least not with a rational dissection of the positions they claim to have, They do hate you. Look at that, man. States restricting healthcare bathroom use and sports participation for transgender youth. And this is kind of a silly choice of colors, don't you think? Brown, yellow, orange, and purple? Mauve? Lavender? It's a strange, feel like you could distinguish some of these colors a little bit better. But all these brown ones here, restrictions, oranges, restrictions not in effect. Why the fuck are the states placed the way they are? Why is Arkansas here? Why is Oklahoma here? Well, this is a horrible map. Why did they make it like this? Why couldn't they just have the states be the state shape? What the hell? Oklahoma's in the... I didn't even notice that at first. This is a very bad map. Okay. DC is in the bottom right. It's Orwellian. It is designed to confuse and disorient, Minter added, referring no doubt to the AP News reports chart up here. What? Major medical groups did not contribute. The administration won't say who did. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really change anything, to be honest. The validity of trans people isn't up to governments to decide. It's not really their purview. Obviously, the legal restrictions matter a lot, but socially, I just don't know how much they're going to be able to, meaningfully push back on this. I don't know. Russia is so explicitly anti-queer in their government, but there are so many queer Russian people online. All these always online furries and hackers and archivists and everything, and all of them are gay, trans, cat girls, or whatever the an annoying combination of descriptors, which I support politically, but still find, kind of personally a little overly twee. They're all over the place. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that you can... The only way, the goal against trans people is eliminationist. I just don't think this administration is capable of the widespread cultural control that would be necessary to do that. The reason Russia has a pretty prominent queer presence, at least online, and Iran doesn't, is because Iran is a totalitarian theocracy run by the Islamic morality police, right? They needed to go so far in order to crack down on what they wanted to prohibit. In most countries, it's just not that doable. In most countries that are violently homophobic, you usually rely on the disposition of the general population, right? So in a place like Uganda, for example, they have the very homophobic law, they're able to get some headway with that in terms of the extermination of their homosexual population, because the average Ugandan is probably not that queer positive, I'm going to guess. Pardon my Orientalist mindset on this. I might be othering people a little bit, but I'm just gonna guess the average Ugandan ain't up with the RuPaul. But in Russia, they came far enough. And in America, America is literally like the global hub of queer culture. It is, by the way. If you want to argue that, you can, but it definitely 100% is. American gay culture, whether it be more corporate stuff out of Hollywood or whether it be like the insane overprominence of queer people in places like Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, other cities that have like really, really big queer populations, we're like a hub, you know? Counterpoint Eurovision. That's just what straight people look like in European countries. I understand the confusion though. What about Montreal? I'm not saying that Canada's bad about it. I'm just saying that America's definitely like the lighthouse on the hill. So how do you rewrite that level of cultural acceptance? And again, I'm not saying that there aren't parts in of America where being openly gay or trans won't get you like hate crimes. Those are for sure real, but like we're operating on a scale here. We're grading on a curve. The gayest city on earth is Berlin, though. Maybe, but when I think of Berlin gay, I think of gay gay, like cis white male gay. That could be a bias on my part, though. To be fair, I think of LA the same way. I'm not really sure. Nah, they just like to be naked. Who doesn't? Anyway, yeah. I just don't think you can. Do you understand what I'm talking about here? The level of top-down authoritarianism that would be required in order to meaningfully force gay and trans people back into the closet would be so great that the administration couldn't possibly do it, and it would upset like every American. Americans in general, left-leaning, right-leaning, all but the most Hitlerite, would not want the American equivalent of Islamic morality police roaming around every city. That America wouldn't be okay with like $50 trillion being spent every year funding like the most right-wing, like brown shirt police forces going door to door asking if you put anything up your butt lately. It's just not, we're not there. So in the absence of something like that, you have to rely on like widespread cultural antagonism, and I just don't think we have enough of that to be meaningfully eliminationist. Not in most of the country. But keep in mind, man, even in Florida, where the Floridian government is insanely Hitlerite, right? Like really, really, really bad. Orlando and Miami are still like thriving hubs of queer culture, you know? It's just pretty difficult to undo. You're talking about, for America at least, hundreds of millions of people who have grown up understanding gay people, and to an extent trans people, to just be a matter of fact, right? It's not even considered a political issue for a lot of people of my generation. I was an adult when Obergefell was ruled, but growing up in California, and more importantly, living in a city, I was around gay people like my whole life. Just they were a part of life, and that was that. I just didn't commit much thought to it until I realized I liked dick, at which point I was like, oh, that's what they were on about. You get me, type shit. It's just I don't know. It's a losing war. Basically what I'm saying is that trans people will be around to piss on Trump's grave. How do trans people in Russia survive? I mean, everyone's got their strategy, I assume, but like the way in Russia, for the most part, they mandate this crackdown on queer people is through occasional, very public police crackdowns on certain people or institutions, but generally just fostering widespread antipathy, homophobia, and transphobia. But they don't do the whole Islamic morality police thing, which means that they don't really have the resources. Also, Russia just couldn't afford to do that. They don't have the resources to really mandate it. So people stay in the closet publicly, but privately in their friend circles and online, they can still be homos. But the problem is that the internet is real life now, right? If you're in the closet in your day-to-day life, but you're gay online, we have a term for that. It's called boyhood. And a lot of people do it, but you're still contributing to the broader homosexual sort of cultural discourse, right? It is the same in Iran to an extent, though I would say a lesser extent because they're a little more militant in their policing. But yeah, to an extent. Weren't you saying a while back that even with Islamic morality police, they don't have the resources, they just rely on people self-policing out of fear? Yes, I don't think people are as afraid of the government in Russia. I don't think Russians are afraid of anything because they don't fear death, and that's kind of the fear from which all fears stem. But I think that like the government in Russia is just too inept and too centralized to meaningfully touch the lives of a lot of people. It's probably like that outside of Tehran too, but I'll admit I don't know as much about like decentralized Iranian governments like in the outer provinces of Iran, or do they call them states? I don't know what the terminology is. People get less afraid of their government the more corrupt their government is, though. That is definitely true to an extent. There's a relationship, right? Because the more corrupt your government is, the less seriously you take them. It's like a joke. Look at us, right? Like we're joking, we're like mocking the Trump regime nonstop, even though we all know that they have an unparalleled surveillance state apparatus, complete control over social media, and a willingness to arrest people and deport them to torture prisons without even being accused of a crime. And that he wants to do it to US citizens. How seriously do we take them? Well, we just don't think they're very competent. So even if they're really evil, and they are, and really harmful, potentially, and in actuality, but they're still incompetent and corrupt. Makes them ridiculous. They're called ostans in Iran. Okay, Ostan. I'll try to keep that in mind. But a province is like the translation, okay? Sometimes it's province, sometimes it's state, sometimes it's, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I like to know the name. TBH, I'm scared of going back to the USA. Well, you should be.